Hello, and a huge welcome back to the PDHP and CAFS podcast. You're with me, Kel Bell, and I hope you are having the most beautiful day. I know that everyone has certainly hit the ground running. We are at the beginning of 2025, a brand new school year. And look, we have so many exciting things that we are undertaking. And I know that, as you start this brand new year, you probably start to feel a little bit like, okay, what can I do different to what I've done before? Am I going to kind of just stick to the same sort of thing, or am I going to approach this year in a different way? And I know that if you don't change things, then changes won't happen. So today we're unpacking what is a common question that I get from our members, from teachers that might pop into our emails about what is the most ideal way to teach my students? And we have developed a bit of a system over the last 5 years, and it certainly stemmed from what I used to do in my own classroom. So this is coming from questions from you as busy teachers, questions from our members, but also sharing a little bit of an insight into what my classroom used to look like. And if you haven't followed me before, my name is Kel. I have spent the last 20 years in New South Wales educating PDHP and community and family studies. And now I feel very blessed to support you in PE, CAFS, HMS and Dance. And hopefully I would love your feedback on what has been working in your classrooms and, what you kind of hope to try to evolve or change in your own class. Because I think when I think about, 20 years ago, when I first started teaching, things were very different. We could do things back then that I know that doesn't work these days. And I get to work with lots of teachers around New South Wales, but also their students as well. So I would love to share with you my framework for the most ideal lesson in your class. And like I said, this kind of stemmed from work that I have done as a busy teacher, but also things that I've done, with you guys and shared them. So let me show you this particular framework. So as you can see here, what I've tried to put together is something that has been taken from our Health and Movement Science membership, and it shows you what I think has really worked as the most ideal lesson. Because let's face it, most students, if you kind of start to get that kind of glazing over of the eyes, kids falling asleep, kids not engaging, you often kind of get the hint okay, what I'm doing might not actually be working. It's not hitting the mark. The kids aren't engaging with it. And often when we really kind of dig into why, it's because we're talking at our students rather than actually engaging within the content. So this is our framework for the most ideal lesson. And as you can see, there are lots of different pieces to the puzzle. But what I'd love for you to do with your lessons is set them up for success from the beginning. Think about the end in mind. Where are you going with this? What is your intention? And where do you hope your students to go throughout the lesson itself? And I always get our members and teachers I've worked with to think about that introduction and that hook to hook the students into your lesson. Often, if you start your lesson from a really good point, it really then lets that lesson flow. It enables the kids to kind of become really engaged in the lesson because you have started with a really strong introduction and a really strong hook. So what that might look like is using things like clips or maybe a quote or some sort of visual or some sort of piece of music that you might play in the background with your students, and that's then hooking them into the lesson. It's not just saying, okay, everyone, let's get our textbooks. We're writing notes today. We're going to do this Google slide. It's actually hooking your students into the lesson. So what you could probably look at is different ways to do that. And I suppose the best way is to capture their attention from the beginning. Something that's exciting, something that will kind of spark their attention So it then really sets your lesson up for success as you move through that. So the next stage to that is really looking at that knowledge and understanding of the content. So I often use this as like explicit teaching and learning. So really explicit with what you're doing. You're actually teaching the content there and then as you get to kind of dive deeper into that. So with that sort of stuff, it might be your activities. It could be it might be a menu board, or it might be the kids moving around the room to different stations. It might be offering variety according to your students, differentiating what you're actually teaching the kids. So that knowledge and understanding piece is really that explicit content with the kids. And I really think a lot of us spend a whole heap of time, probably too much time, on that explicit knowledge and understanding. We spend way too much time there teaching at the kids rather than them engaging with what we're doing. Now, the next part of the piece, part of the puzzle, is that application of content. And look, as I've mentioned, and as many of you know, I've worked with thousands of schools in the last 5 years. Also, doing HSC revision sessions across New South Wales. And with my own students for 16 years, I often would find if I forgot this piece of the puzzle and went straight to a wrap up or straight to like, okay, the bell's gone, our kids don't get an opportunity to really dive deeper into the content. So this is where that application of content has to come in. You can't just go, okay, here's our intro, here's our content. Okay, let's now go straight to some revision questions or wrap it all up. You actually have to give the kids an opportunity to actually apply what they've just learned. So I'll say that again, actually apply what you have just taught them, what they've just explored, because so much of the time you'll see that, I've worked with lots of HSC kids across New South Wales and teachers, and a lot of our memberships are based around HSC. What I often see is the kids can regurgitate the content, they can talk about it, but they can't actually then put it into practice. They can't, apply in a different context. And we know for the HSC that those exam questions are unseen. The kids have to be able to apply their content to that question. Same as in class. Giving them opportunities to actually do that in class is going to set you up for success. And if you would love a copy of this download, head to thelonet.com/lesson, and you'll get some of these templates and ideas for you to start to think about and map out your own lessons. Now, this is exactly what we provide in our membership. So PDHPE, K-6, 7-10, our CAFS membership, the CAFS Collective, HMS membership, and our new dance membership. We actually give you the scaffold and we actually do it for you. We showcase what you can be doing with the kids, and you can go, love that, don't love that. Okay, I'm going to tweak that for my class, and here we go. We're doing the heavy lifting in the background to help you using this framework. So once the kids have had an opportunity to actually apply their content, apply their knowledge, we then would probably look to have some sort of wrap up or reflection on what they've done. So it might be you bringing it all together, bringing the class together, or bring different groups together to just kind of, put a nice little bow on it to make sure the kids have actually finished or completed or applied that content, that application of their content. So in terms of activities, you might do, like a quick, checklist on the board. Have you been able to see success with this? Success criteria are really great with this, kind of wrapping it up. Or you might like to provide like a final statement to the kids or a final summary on what you've just done in class. And again, the final piece of the puzzle is to actually check for understanding. I reckon the check for understanding and the application of content part are the two biggest missing pieces of the puzzle in classrooms, that I've worked with. So thousands of teachers around New South Wales often find that those two pieces are actually missing, that application of content and that checking for understanding. And look, I have been there and done it. When I was a fresh-faced 20-something-year-old in my first couple of years of teaching, I would finish a lesson. I would probably do the knowledge and understanding, wrap up my lesson, say, okay, guys, yep, any questions? All right. And then the bell goes. Those finishes, and you probably remember it at uni, that feedback maybe from your university supervisor, how are you wrapping up your lesson? Are you providing any sort of exit strategy or exit ticket? What are you doing to check for understanding? And I think for me, like, that's the feedback that I got. Don't know about you. That's the feedback that I got as, an early grad, and even on my prac, that I wasn't finishing my lessons effectively. And I reckon for the first 2 years especially, I didn't do that well. But once I started to see the impact of, I think, formative assessment, us having that as a focus in our diocese, made a massive impact on my teaching, the way my kids learnt, our lesson flow, all that sort of stuff. So really checking the kids' understanding before you move on. And look, if I'm really honest, I reckon for me as a student, maths was never my strong point. There were so many gaps in my own understanding of maths. I reckon I've got up to year 7 maths. And then beyond that, I'm not very mathematical inclined. And I had lots of gaps in my understanding because we went straight to new content. And all that background stuff, all those foundational skills, I really missed out on. And I think that's a big weakness in a lot of our classrooms, is that we're not checking for understanding of our kids. Do you get it? Show, prove to me, do you actually understand it before we even move on? So in terms of what that could look like is, we've got our exit tickets, our exit strategy. Mini whiteboards are amazing for that. The kids can rub that off, post-it notes, a quick gallery walk, a quick, visual, asking the kids' names, paddle pop sticks, just a very quick, maybe 1 to 2 minutes to 5 minutes, checking in with the kids. Do you actually understand what I've just taught you? And as I've mentioned, I've done lots of masterclasses and lots of revision sessions. I think I started those all the way back in 2007. I've worked with lots of HSE kids over the last 20 odd years. And these are gaps in their understanding. And I often think, well, maybe what are we not doing with our kids to actually check in on their understanding before we move on? And I know that's something that we've really focused on in our CAFS and HMS memberships. And certainly we'll be doing that in our 7 to 10 and K to 6 PDHP memberships. And obviously that will then flow into our dance membership. So to quickly check in, to quickly go over this framework, it's really setting that those foundational pieces of the puzzle, that introduction and hook. Is it strong? Do you start your lesson strong? Or do the kids just get bored straight away as soon as they hear your voice? What are you doing for that knowledge and understanding piece? What are you doing to actually explicitly teach the kids that content? And if they already know it, you don't have to re-go over it. If they've already got those foundational knowledge and understanding, there's no point in repeating it. You would then move to that next thing. What are you doing to really engage the kids? What application of content is there? That practical application, what does that look like? Is it some sort of activity? Is it some sort of investigation where they're actually applying what they've just learnt? I'm thinking also scenario, situations, a case study, maybe some sort of stimulus that they then have to respond to. What are you doing to wrap up your lesson for the kids to reflect and to bring it together? And then that checking for understanding, what are you doing to make sure your kids are ready to move on? And I often think because we're so time poor, so many of us stay at that, that surface level understanding, and we forget to check in. Do my kids actually understand this? So I would love to hear from you. Feedback is always very much welcome with me. So if you would love a copy of this particular download, head to thelearnnet.com/lesson. You can access that to get those checklists and also start to scaffold your own lessons. But I'd really love to hear what you're going to focus on in terms of those pieces of the puzzle. And this is me 20 years later. Like, I wasn't always like that. My intros and my exits, like the finishing parts of my lessons, were terrible. It takes work. It does take work, but you'll see that success with the kids. They will shine once all those pieces of the puzzle come together. So let us know what you're working on. The learnnet.com/lesson is where you can head to grab these downloads. We'll pop all those details under our podcast recording. But also let us know if you have any questions about what we've got coming up. We have a massive 2025 with our face-to-face workshops and events. And if you'd love to be part of any of that, the learnnet.com/events is where you can go, and we get to actually see each other face-to-face, which is super exciting. That magic that happens when we're together in community is absolute gold. But also to provide that ongoing support and resources, we have our memberships, which are open for registration now. So the best way to go to check those out is the learnnet.com/memberships. But I will see you guys again next week on the CAFS, PDHP and CAFS podcast. Until then, take care and have the most amazing week. Thanks again.